When a Uruguayan Air Force C-130 Hercules transport plane went down in the freezing cold wasteland of the Andes Mountains in 1972, killing 33 people, the world assumed there were no survivors. After all, it was extremely unlikely that anyone could survive being stranded in temperatures as low as -40 degrees Celsius with little food, no water, and no rescue operation coming to save them. But this assumption was completely wrong. Welcome to my channel. Today let's find out the amazing story of the miracle of the Andes. On October 13, 1972, an Uruguayan Air Force C-130 Hercules transport plane departed Uruguay for Chile, carrying 45 passengers and crew members from the National Air Force rugby team, who were going on a tour of Santiago de Chile. As they approached the Los Andes mountain range, the pilots realized that the storm was far worse than they had anticipated, and tried to make a U-turn. However, their efforts were in vain because the plane lost altitude very quickly and they were forced to attempt a risky landing in the mountains. Before anyone knew what happened, the plane burst through a wall of clouds at about 2,500 meters above sea level and crashed into a remote area of the Andes Mountains. The impact of the crash was so severe that it snapped the aircraft's fuselage in half. The wreckage was scattered over a wide area, and an intense fire engulfed the plane. Of the 45 people on board, only 16 managed to survive the initial impact and pull themselves out of the burning wreckage. Those who survived the crash were faced with a nightmare scenario as they found many of their friends and teammates had lost their lives. Rescue attempts by the military were unsuccessful because of bad weather conditions, and after 2 weeks, the search parties gave up hope of finding any survivors. The survivors felt abandoned and resigned to their fate. But against all odds, the survivors made the decision to stay alive. They did everything they could to keep alive, including huddling together for warmth and eating whatever they could find in the wreckage. With no food, the survivors began to ration the food they had, which consisted mainly of chocolate bars, biscuits, and some canned peaches. There was only enough food to last them 10 days, which meant that every day the survivors had to make a difficult decision about how much food to eat. As the days went by, the survivors became weaker and weaker due to lack of food and exposure to the elements. Some of them developed frostbite, and others succumbed to injuries they had sustained in the crash. By December, only 8 of the 16 survivors were still alive. These men were beyond desperate. They were suffering from severe starvation, hypothermia, and despair. They knew that if they didn't do something drastic, they would die. In a moment of inspiration, or perhaps desperation, the survivors decided to start looking for other sources of food. They searched the wreckage of the plane and the surrounding area for anything they could eat, but their efforts were in vain. It's just when they were about to lose all hope, one of the survivors, Roberto Canessa, stumbled upon some berries. He was not sure if they were edible, but he was desperate to try anything at this point. He ate some of the berries and waited to see if he would get sick. Luckily, the berries were safe to eat, and this discovery gave the survivors a much-needed boost. With a new sense of hope, the survivors continued their search for food and shelter. They found some horse meat left behind by a hunting party, and this helped them to regain their strength. One day, one of the survivors, Gustavo de Zerbino, decided to venture further away from the crash site in an attempt to find help. He climbed to a nearby mountain peak and shouted for help. Miraculously, his cries were heard by a group of mountain climbers who were in the area. Gustavo had finally found help, and soon word spread like wildfire about the survivors of Flight 571. Rescue operations were immediately launched, and one by one, the survivors were brought off the mountain. The first 4 survivors were rescued on December 22, 1972, followed by the next 4 on December 23rd. The remaining 4 survivors were too weak to be moved and had to be left behind. They were placed in the care of medical personnel at the crash site, while arrangements were made to bring them back. But before the final 4 survivors could be rescued, a freak snowstorm hit the area, making it impossible for rescue helicopters to land at the crash site. The medical personnel at the crash site made the decision to move the 4 survivors to a more sheltered area near a cave. This turned out to be a wise decision because on December, when the rescue helicopters returned, they found the 4 survivors alive. The rescue operation was a major success, and the world was stunned by the news that there were actually 12 survivors of the crash. The survivors were hailed as heroes, and their story of survival against all odds became known as the miracle of the Andes. All the survivors were eventually able to make full recoveries, though some of them suffered long-term health effects from their ordeal. One of the most amazing aspects of the story is that the survivors were able to maintain a positive attitude throughout their ordeal. Despite the pain, hunger, and despair they endured, they never gave up hope of being rescued. This can be attributed to the leadership of the group, as well as the belief that they had to stay alive for their families and loved ones. The story of the miracle of the Andes has been told and retold countless times in books, documentaries, and movies. In fact, there is a recent Netflix movie called The 16 of the Andes about the crash and the survival of the 16 people. The story has also been the subject of intense media scrutiny, with many people questioning the decisions that were made both before and after the crash. Despite the controversy, the story of the miracle of the Andes remains an amazing tale of survival against all odds. It is a testament to the human spirit and the will to live that continues to inspire people around the world. The story teaches us that no matter how dire the situation may seem, we should never give up hope. The survivors of Flight 571 are a shining example of this, and their story will continue to be told for generations to come. Now let's take a look at some facts about the miracle of the Andes. Fact No. 1. The survivors of Flight 571 received no formal training in survival techniques. Yet they were able to survive for 72 days in the harsh environment of the Andes Mountains. This shows that human resilience and determination can sometimes overcome even the most challenging circumstances. Fact number 2, the survivors had to make some difficult decisions in order to stay alive, such as eating very small amounts of food each day and leaving the dead bodies near the crash site. These decisions were not easy to make, but they were necessary in order for the group to survive. Fact No. 3, the role of leadership was crucial in the survival of Flight 571. The group had several strong leaders who were able to keep the group together and focused on their goal of being rescued. These leaders were able to inspire hope and maintain order in a very difficult situation. After learning these facts, we can see that the miracle of the Andes was truly an amazing event. The survivors showed incredible strength, determination, and resilience in the face of very difficult circumstances. Their story is a reminder that no matter how dire the situation may seem, we should never give up hope. The story also shows the importance of leadership, teamwork, and the will to survive. That brings us to the end of today's episode. What did you think about the story of the miracle of the Andes? Do you know about this story before watching this video? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to subscribe and join our growing community. We have a lot of incredible videos coming up that you don't want to miss out on. Thank you very much for watching. Stay safe and I'll see you in the next video.